I'd like to welcome all of you here today. I have just a couple of announcements, and then it'll be my pleasure and privilege today to introduce our presenter. Some of you got a little blue card as you walked in the door. We used to have you do little evaluations so that we could improve our classes. You do those online now, so you don't actually need this. So do that online. But you can take notes on it, write a thank you note to our presenter, whatever you'd like. Would ask that you remember to turn off your electronic devices. And also, you have an email in your inbox in Canvas with a list of those that won Badger gear and extra credit. Read the email, and it has some instructions in there, and you need to respond to that. It should have just arrived about a half an hour ago. It's not been there very long. So today, our guest presenter is Jana Francis, with a background in broadcast media, as well as marketing for technology and internet companies in Silicon Valley. Jana Francis, together with Rhett Clevenger, founded babystills.com in 2008. This was the first site in their Stills Network family. Jana and Rhett were finalists for the Utah Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year recognition in 2012 and 2013. Jana was also on the list of the 30 women to watch for Utah in 2013. She now lives in Salt Lake City with her husband and 3 very lively children. Both Jana and Rhett are with us today, and you're going to meet Jana, and I'll let her sort of call on Rhett to stand and wave, and so you can see them as a partnership here. Rhett lives in Park City. We appreciate them making the drive to be here with us today. A couple of personal items about Jana. She's passionate about fitness, enjoys gardening, cooking, and also is an outdoor recreational enthusiast. So I asked her if the leaves were turning colors on the way here, and you know, right before you present to people, you're thinking about the presentation. So the deal is, on the way home, she gets to have a clear mind and notice the leaves. And for outdoor recreational enthusiasts, we have some awesome places in this area. I'll have to tell you about them afterward. So let's have a warm welcome for them today.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I've never been to Ephraim or to Snow College, but I had some cousins that went here, so really excited to be here, and I was honored to even be asked to be. So hopefully something I say today inspires you guys, and that it's a really valuable use of your time. So first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some background on me, and then about my company, and then I will talk about the qualities of an entrepreneur, and that way you'll be able to think through, are you an entrepreneur? And then I'll open it up in the end for 10 minutes of Q&A. So how did I become an entrepreneur? I never really envisioned myself as an entrepreneur. Never thought of myself as one, and I didn't really set out to be an entrepreneur. And that was until I had the concept for babystills.com in 2007. And I was 33 years old. I had 2 boys, and I had a newborn baby girl that was on the way. And I was a full-time career woman. I was the director of sales for KSL.com at the time, and I had been loved my career at KSL. I had been there a little over 7 years in various roles while I worked there. And but previous to that, I had always worked for someone else. And since my very first babysitting job at 14, I really always worked for someone else. And but when I look back throughout my life and different things that I've done and different jobs I've had, there are a lot of key milestones in my life that really was very entrepreneurial, and that really led me to where I am today and to what I do now. So my official beginning with entrepreneurship started with the concept of babystills.com. I had the idea in 2007, and I launched it 18 months later in April of 2008. And it was the very first daily deal website for women. And that's relevant a little bit later on when I talk about the qualities of an entrepreneur, because this was a year and a half before Groupon. This was a long time before daily deals were very as mainstream as they are now. And that'll be relevant in a little while when I talk about entrepreneurship. But the passion and the inception behind the company are twofold. One was really a personal need for myself, and another was a professional need for brands on a marketing perspective. And the real, I should say, the reason that I wanted to become an entrepreneur all of a sudden after having, spending 15 years in the career world was, first of all, as I mentioned, I was going back to maternity leave with my third child. It had been 6 years since I had had a baby. And I really wanted that one chance in my life to stay home with my kids. And I just really wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but that wasn't a reality for me. I had been putting my husband through chiropractic school and getting his, helping him get his business started. And so at the time, I was the breadwinner and needed to continue to be. So, but when I went on maternity leave with my daughter, it was, I couldn't really enjoy it because I dreaded the day that I had to go back. And I was pretty sure she'd be my last, and so I really wanted to, savor all of those moments. So that, I'll never forget a moment when I actually did leave to go back to work when my maternity leave was over. When I pulled out of the driveway, I felt terrible for myself. I was crying. I didn't want to leave my baby. It's a very unnatural thing. And at that moment, I realized, you know what? I can take control of my own life. I am a smart girl, and I've just got to find a way to be my own boss and work from home. And so that was really the inspiration behind, or the motivation behind, okay, I can do this. I can take control of my life and create the life that I want. So at that moment, it was a turning point where I just started being open to the idea of what else could I do? Could I really work for myself? How would this work for me? And then the ideas and the inspiration started to flow. And what that was for me was twofold. On a personal note, as I mentioned, I was, I had a little baby girl, and she was my first girl, and it had been 6 years since I'd had a baby. So I wanted to spoil her to death, and I wanted to get her all the cute things and all the latest and greatest products. But being a busy career woman and having a very full-time job and 3 kids, I didn't have time to go to all the cute boutiques. I had never even been to a baby boutique, for that matter. And so I was really looking online for what that was. And at the time, in 2007, believe it or not, e-commerce was pretty infantile, if you will. It was a picture and a price. There wasn't a lot of explanation. There wasn't a lot of description and why this brand and why that brand. And that's what I was really looking for as a new mom with a baby that I wanted to spoil, and I wanted to get all the good brand names. And so it was a little bit overwhelming trying to scour the internet for what I wanted. And I assumed that there was a website that would spoon feed busy moms like me something interesting every day that would, help us care for our children. So I assumed that existed and tell us what was hip and cool. And when I continued to search, I realized it didn't exist. My friends also called me the .com princess. Everyone joked with me all the time because I always knew the best place online to get the best deal on whatever it was. I'm a very frugal person by nature, and so I was always sort of the deal hunter, and I had e-commerce dialed. And this was when it wasn't, that mainstream in Utah, believe it or not. I had lived and worked in Silicon Valley prior to KSL while I was putting my husband through chiropractic school, and worked for 2 amazing technology companies out there during my 4 years there, and kind of jumped ahead of a lot of the technology. So when I came back to Utah, I felt a little bit behind. But so being the frugal person I was, not only did I want an awesome item in small doses that I could, so give me all the details, but one thing a day, and for a busy mom like me, but I also wanted a great deal. And when I realized that didn't exist after searching and searching, I decided to create it. And so that's how babystills.com and the concept for babystills.com was born on the personal side. And on the professional side, having been in advertising and marketing for most of my career, especially here in media sales at KSL News Radio and television and .com, what I knew for sure about advertising was that concentration was key in giving the advertiser really amazing results. A lot of people will think, well, maybe I'll just put $100 on this radio station and $100 on that TV station and a little bit in the paper. Forget it. You're wasting your money. You got to pick a place that has the best likelihood of your target audience and really concentrate it. And so when I was challenged after being in television and radio sales to become the director of sales for KSL.com, my job was to create interesting content on KSL.com that, and ad platforms that would work for advertisers and really help Utah advertisers understand how to take advantage of digital media. And so I, after a year of seeing lots and lots of campaigns fail, I wanted to really focus on concentration. And so we took that concept that we do with television and radio and tried it on the digital platform and created what we called a homepage takeover on KSL.com for an advertiser for a weekend. And it did better for them in that particular short period of time than it did than that entire money or that entire ad spend normally worked throughout the whole month. So that proved to us that the concept was really going to work, concentration in digital form as well. So, and as my time in digital media and traditional broadcast sales, I saw advertising change so dramatically from becoming more and more and more niche, and it's even worse now because I left media in 2008, and it's unbelievable how niche different media is getting, especially with cable and the internet. And so I knew that the future of advertising was really going away from geography because people at the end of the day aren't very interested in what's happening in zip code 84123. But what they're really interested in, what they're interested in, right? Moms with special needs children, men that love to fly fish. People like to connect with people that they connect with on a personal level based on their interests. And I knew that that's where media was going. And so all of these concepts, that concept was happening to me on a professional level where I was seeing concentration work in a niche form. And the niche in this case was geography, right, with KSL being just a Utah thing. But I saw communities starting to grow online, very unrelated to where you lived, whether you were in Florida or California. So anyway, those two things really created the concept of a daily deal website that spoon-fed moms one thing a day at a great deal and connected all of them together. And so that's where babysteals.com was born. So that was really my inspiration and motivation behind Baby Steals. And it's kind of interesting how I was able over time to make my obsession, which was advertising and shopping and getting a great deal, turning it into my profession. And so as I get further, you'll see that that really is kind of a cool thing with entrepreneurs is you can really, the best entrepreneurs create a business out of an obsession or a passion, and they typically end up doing the best. So let's see here. So again, okay, so so Rhett and I, who is sitting over here, he's my co-founder and CEO, luckily 3 weeks before I launched the business, we had lunch. It's a long, really cool story that's very surreal, but we had lunch and we walked out full business partners. And when I had the concept for Baby Steals in 2007, I was nervous because I didn't know how well, first of all, I couldn't stop thinking about it. It was on my mind constantly, every day, every night. How am I going to create this? Because as soon as I had the idea, it was like, I got to do this. But it felt so daunting being a full-time, working mom and of 3 kids. But what I made sure I did was every single day I did one thing to take a step ahead before I went to bed. And it took ridiculous amounts of discipline and a lot of lost sleep. But I knew that the only way it was going to happen was if I did it. And that wasn't going to happen if I just kept doing what I did every single day, which was, pretty overwhelming as it was. But I made it happen every day. I took one step forward. And that was one of the keys for me in making it work. So it did take me 18 months from concept to creation. And then I met Rhett. Well, we had known each other through association. He was at backcountry.com. And so we walk out full business partners and launched the website 3 weeks later. And we had several missions in mind. Let's see here, my computer is dying on me. Here we go. All right, so when we started babysteals.com, we had several missions in mind, as I said. we started it out of our garages. We didn't pay ourselves for the first year. We had no funding, and to this day, Rhett and I both own the business 50-50. We have no loans, no debt, and no investors, and that's on purpose. We call it bootstrapping, and we like that personally because we truly do want to work for ourselves and create the business the way we want to create it. And so when we started the company, we wanted to, first of all, be disruptive in e-commerce. And this was very disruptive at the time. There wasn't anything for women like this whatsoever. And we wanted to really break down the barriers of e-commerce. A lot of people go into e-commerce thinking, oh, sweet, you can work whenever you want, and you don't have to respond to emails right away, and it's not like standing at a store where they're yelling at your face. You're behind the screen, and you can kind of do what you want. You know, that whole Tim Ferriss book, 4-Hour Work Week, which, trust me, it just doesn't work for me. But anyway, we wanted to break down those barriers and create a real human element to e-commerce. Because again, I wanted to connect with moms like me. And when I had the idea for babysteals.com, I know it sounds really cliche, because a lot of people say, how did you come up with the name? And people say, oh, I had a dream, or I woke up in the middle of the night. But I really did wake up in the middle of the night and sit up, and I was like, baby steals? Baby steals? Baby steals. Okay. Oh, wait. Everybody's going to think that's like a kidnapping website. It's kind of creepy, you know? But no, I was like, no, but that's disruptive, and it's different, and it's catchy, and I'm really glad we went with it. But I ran downstairs, and I bought the domain, babysteals.com, because at the time I didn't have a laptop, and at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I realized at that moment, ooh, if babysteals.com works, then wouldn't it work for kids, and wouldn't it work for scrapbooking? Because I love to scrapbook. A huge hobby of mine at the time. I haven't scrapbooked one page since I started the business, to be honest. But it was a big hobby of mine, and it would work for kids, and it would work for women, and it would work for hunting and fishing, and you name it. So I ended up buying about 100 domains that night, and to this day we own a little over 500 domains that end in steals.com. And we actually now, our company is called steals.com, and we've got a really fun domain there with trademarks and all that good stuff. So anyway, I got lucky there. But again, we started the company to be disruptive, to really break the barriers of e-commerce, and we wanted to really change the expectation for human interaction online. And so our goal was to curate amazing products for women, one deal at a time, and really tell the stories of these interesting brands. Because having been in advertising so long, that's the hardest thing for a brand in a business, is to get your word out without paying a fortune in advertising. And that's what this unique platform really does. And it's kind of interesting because we really consider ourselves sort of a broadcast media company at the end of the day, because we are broadcasting amazing, interesting, curated content to niche audiences throughout the world. And Rhett's background is all e-commerce. And so our company is really a unique blend of media and e-commerce. And anyway, fast forward 6 years later, we've shipped well over 2 million orders, and we've generated over 55 million in revenues, and we're still debt-free. We have a little bit of over 50 employees in Salt Lake City. We have our fulfillment center there where we ship all the orders from, and we have a great time. So this was done in Salt Lake City, Utah, by a mom with 3 kids. This wasn't in Silicon Valley or New York or Boston with huge amounts of funding. And so you really can be an entrepreneur no matter what your situation is. So I thought a quote from our Facebook page would really epitomize what we do. This came direct from a customer from New York City. So she says, Baby Steals, Kid Steals, and all of the Steal Network sites have paved the way for a new kind of shopping experience for parents. Not only does they call us the Steal Network, that was our name before we bought the domain steals.com. Not only do they provide a chance for us to try high-quality products at a fraction of their retail value, but it also provides a platform with interacting with the company employees, even the owner and CEO, as well as other Steal Network shoppers. In the past 3 years, I've been able to steal hundreds of amazing products, but I've also met hundreds of wonderful women as a result of this company. It really is a Steal Network. So as I mentioned, as you could see on that slide, we have Baby Steals, Kid Steals, Scrapbook Steals, and She Steals now. So we have a very different philosophy when it comes to Deal of the Day, and part of that was because we invented the way it was going to work based on what we wanted. And our motto, for our tagline, I should say, for steals.com is, it's not just a deal, it's a steal. And what that means to us is a lot more than just getting a good price, because There are thousands of deals online every single day, but it takes a lot more than a good price to get a deal. It takes a high-quality product, fast shipping, and amazing customer service, and when that happens, you truly get a steal, and that is what steals.com is all about to us. And that is a huge differentiator from us in the deal of the day space nowadays, where many are just a middleman of sorts, where they're selling vouchers for services versus high-quality products and shipping them to the consumer. So this is a bit of a visualization of what we provide for the brands. And when I mentioned earlier, this was sort of the business need that we created. And so really in the middle there of that stadium is, in my mind, considered the advertiser or the deal of the day on our website. And that is a representation of, imagine that's moms with babies on their hips, right? And they're not watching the game, they're watching the entertainment at the halftime. And that's really what, that's a visualization of what we create for these brands that get featured on our website. So now that you know a little bit about what we do and my history, here's a few questions to ask yourself to see if you're an entrepreneur. So what are you? So entrepreneurs have the opportunity to get paid even when they're sleeping. They build a business much bigger than themselves, and they make money or lose money when they're not there. And they decide when they work, and they get paid only when they generate profit. So a freelancer gets paid for working on your own time for someone else, and in most cases gets paid on the agreed upon contract. So a graphic designer, for example, if you get a contract from a business to create graphic design, your money ends when you're done with that contract or you're finished with that task. And then there's a contributor. So a contributor is what I would call the typical traditional employment, where you work for someone else at a specified time. And you get paid by an employer for the time you spend being asked to do what, you were asked to do. So really, the difference between whether or not you're an entrepreneur is, in my mind, is who decides what you work on, you or them. But really, no matter which three of these you think you are, in order to advance your career, you really need to have versatility, work ethic, and discipline. Otherwise, you'll very likely be replaced by someone cheaper or better. So these two guys, they're two of the most successful entrepreneurs of all time, but they needed giant workforces in order to become successful and fulfill their own mission and dreams. And those people that helped them and surrounded them, even in the early days, were contributors, but they sure did make a lot of money in the process. And they all had the same sense of pride and passion in helping these men build their respective companies. So you don't have to be an entrepreneur to make a lot of money, but you can follow another committed leader and commit to their cause and their passion and still do incredibly well. So entrepreneurs, what are entrepreneurs like? And since we're talking about entrepreneurship, let's ignore freelancers and contributors, but do you have what it takes to be an entrepreneur? Here are some of the most important concepts and personal qualities I think that you need to have in order to succeed, and one is understanding people. Running a scalable business has a lot to do with understanding people, all the way from how to hire the right people and how to handle situations when things aren't going well, how to talk to them, how to lead them, how to mentor them. And you really need a high emotional intelligence to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with the people that you need to make your goals happen. You have to be extremely comfortable making decisions. If you can make decisions quickly without analysis paralysis and be confident in your decision, then that's a good thing when it comes to being an entrepreneur, because you do not have time to sit on decisions for long in the business world if it's all up to you. Entrepreneurs work ridiculously hard. So the question to ask yourself is, how much do you like to work? Are you self-disciplined? Do you need a kick in the butt, to get going? Or are you up and at it and in it to win it and doing it, for yourself every single day? And let's see here. So the other thing I always like to say is, and I think this in interviews when I'm interviewing people as well, is hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. There's a lot of people who are incredibly talented, incredibly bright, very well educated, but if you don't have a lot of self-discipline and work ridiculously hard, you're probably not going to be a very good entrepreneur. And this goes, you've probably heard this before, but a lot of entrepreneurs say this, and it's completely true, that the nice thing about being an entrepreneur is you get to pick the 18 hours every day that you work. And that is so true. You have to be very, very confident. Do you look people in the eye when you meet them for the first time, or are you nervous? Do you introduce yourself on an elevator? Do you kind of go into the corner of a room when you get there, or are you there to meet people and network and meet new people? Are you willing and able to constantly sell your concept to employees and suppliers and advertisers and your community and customers? Are you a risk taker? How comfortable are you with risk? Because your reputation and everything you've ever worked for is on the line when you start your own business. And if you can deal with risk and you're comfortable with risk, then you'd probably be a good entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are incredibly resourceful. Entrepreneurs see opportunity and not roadblocks. I hate hearing what can't be done. I want to hear what can be done. Because for me, if I see an obstacle in the way, I will either run around it or jump over it or find a way to destroy it. But, a lot of times I see that some people will see the roadblock instead of the opportunity. And so that's another thing to ask yourself. Do you see opportunity, or do you see, you're making me laugh. That's funny. Okay, so let's see here. So competitive. How competitive are you? Do you have to win every single board game you play? Do you have a burning desire to succeed? One of my favorite quotes, and don't laugh, but Ricky Bobby, Talladega Nights, if you ain't first, you're last. And if you haven't seen that movie, then I apologize, because it's really funny. But you got to be really, really, really competitive. Creativity is a huge part of being an entrepreneur. Do you find yourself creating the content, or do you find yourself reading the content? Do you have your own ideas, or do you like to watch other people's ideas? And when I mentioned earlier that I was going to bring back that concept, that is one thing that I think we did. What was a key for our success is we didn't mirror our website around anyone. There wasn't anything like it before. And so at least for women, and the way we did it, and there still isn't anyone to this day. We've had a lot of people that have tried and failed and lost a lot of money thinking that it looks so easy, right? It's just one deal a day. It's so simple, but it's incredibly complicated. And so that's the question to ask yourself. Are you the one coming up with the ideas, or are you always looking at everyone else's ideas going, ooh, I should try that one too? Leaders. Do you need someone else to tell you what to do every day, and do you prefer that? Or are you the one that's yearning all the time to be telling everyone else what to do? One of my best friend's moms from childhood said the other day, you really were the bossiest girl on the block. So I thought that was kind of funny. But what she really meant was you were the one that was sort of always arranging the soccer games and the bike rides and all of that. Money. This is a huge one. Are you a big spender and bad at managing money? And do you spend frivolously? Or do you only buy what you can afford, and are you averse to loans? And how do you manage your money? Because that's another big question to ask yourself. Because if you have bad personal financial habits, that will most likely follow you in business. Execution. Running a successful business is not just about having great ideas. It's about really strong execution every single day. Like I mentioned earlier, even though I wasn't executing in a big way every day, I never let a day go by without some kind of execution, and then I finally got there. But you have to execute on something every single day and get better every single day. For us now, just going to work is never enough, right? Getting through our emails and having a couple meetings, right? It's every day having to push ourselves to take another step forward. And then do whatever it takes. Are you always willing to do whatever it takes in any situation? As I mentioned earlier, Rhett and I did every single job in the company and didn't pay ourselves for the first year. We truly did everything it took to make this company successful, all the way from even a couple months ago, or less than that, we were shipping like madmen in the warehouse because we were down a few staff members and it needed to get out the door, and it was probably 2:30 in the morning when we went home. But it didn't matter what it was. We were even vacuuming moths, out of the corners, and it doesn't matter what it is. We are willing and able to do whatever it takes to move the business forward every single day. So in my opinion, those are the qualities you need to have to become a successful entrepreneur. And if you don't feel like you have these qualities now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't become an entrepreneur or that you won't eventually. Like I said, I was 33 when I had the idea for Baby Steals, and I never considered being an entrepreneur before that. It never even crossed my mind. And so these are just things to consider as you move forward, but just know sometimes getting a great job at a great company and being a contributor, as I mentioned, is the best learning opportunity there is to really understand over time and create a lot of the extra skills and personality traits that you need to be your own boss and become an entrepreneur. The other thing I will mention that isn't on a slide is that following your passion is what you hear all the time. Follow your passion and everything will work out. And that's very true to a degree, but the other thing you need to acknowledge is that it takes a lot more than just loving one thing to be successful. And when you're an entrepreneur, it's unreal how much you have to know about everything. Everything from accounting to marketing to finance to e-commerce to, from SEO to, you name it. There's so many different things you need to know about, and if you don't know, you got to learn or hire someone way better than you at it, and hope that they're in on your passion as much as you are. But it's kind of overwhelming to think how much you actually do have to know, a little bit about a lot, in order to really be a good entrepreneur. So 5 years into the business, I was asked by American Express Open Forum to create a blog post about my experiences on what it was like to be an entrepreneur and what I had learned so far. And so I wrote this a little over a year ago. It is on my blog at janafrancis.com if you ever want to reference it. But I'm just going to read to you my experiences as an entrepreneur. And the blog post is called Confessions of an Entrepreneur 6 Years In. Actually, I said 6 years because I didn't publish it on my own blog for a year. So I've learned that since you're the boss and you're not able to share your feelings about particular situations with people anymore, that is quite often a very lonely feeling. What I mean by that is when you're the boss, you've got to, you may be really upset about a certain situation, but you basically need to keep it to yourself, right? Because it's a respect thing for your employees, and it really is a lonely feeling sometimes, feeling like you can't express how you feel about a particular situation. I've learned that people look at the life of an entrepreneur and think that they want that for themselves, but they don't understand the risk and hard work that really comes with it. I get asked all the time, oh my gosh, it must be so awesome to be your own boss. And yes, it totally is, and it's also totally not, because it comes with all those other additional things I mentioned earlier. I've learned that it makes you feel like you're being taken advantage of when employees take your company and their jobs for granted. Don't they know that this started from nothing? As your company grows and people join your company later on without seeing the humble roots and that it actually was nothing, you created it. If you see people taking advantage of that and just sort of taking it for granted, it hits you personally right there, because you wonder, don't you realize, we don't have money, doesn't fall from the sky from us. We don't have investors. We started this from nothing, and we don't take it for granted. Not one customer is ever taken for granted in our business. I've also learned to quickly eliminate those that feel that way. I've learned how difficult it is to read between the lines when people tell you what you want to hear, not what is accurate. You're the boss now, and you'll unlikely get the whole story or the full truth. I've learned that it is very easy to critique your boss. When you become one, you are finally able to relate to the decisions you've seen your old bosses make in the past that you judged at the time. I've learned that being an expert at a task does not mean that that person will be good at managing people that do that task. I've learned to never hire employees that need to be told what to do on a daily basis unless their job is repetitive and easy to train for. I've learned that there is a fine balance between creating process and structure and fostering innovation. I've learned that no matter the level of experience or college degree, it's often beat by hard work, passion, and desire to win. I've learned that smaller groups get more accomplished. I've learned that sometimes people spend more time searching for answers than solving problems. I've learned that firing someone is one of the hardest things in business to do. However, it can be a gift that you give to them, to move them on to something that is a better fit for them. I've also learned that laying someone off is even harder, because they didn't necessarily do anything wrong. I've learned that companies are teams, not families. You can't pick your family, and you're stuck with them regardless. A team gets to pick who's on it and holds each other accountable for their spot on the team. I've learned that there's a lot more going on than meets the eye, and when people judge your decision, they don't know what other data you had to consider when you made that decision. I've learned to manage people to their strengths rather than penalize them for their weaknesses. I've learned it's a lot more fun to build a company than manage one. I've learned that just because you hire more people doesn't mean you will get more things done faster. I've learned that adding more people sometimes just adds to the complication, not the efficiency. I've learned that it's impossible to eliminate bureaucracy as the company gets bigger, even with the best of intentions. I've learned that there is as much reward seeing someone on your team reach their goals as it is to reach your own. And ironically, they're the same. I've learned that no matter how professional I become, I am still affected emotionally by things that happen. And I've learned that when you're emotionally invested, it's hard not to take it personally. I've learned that when running your own business, there are amazing days and there are terrible days, and each one makes up for the other. There are very few average days. I've learned that many things you have to do in business have nothing to do with the business itself. I've learned that just because you are busy doesn't mean you're accomplishing anything. I've learned that until you're an entrepreneur, it's hard to understand what it's like to be one. I've learned that you have to make a tremendous amount of decisions every day. I've learned that when money is no longer an object, you realize it was never the object in the first place. I've learned that people do not get put into roles, they create a career for themselves. I've learned that business is not about your income, it's about the outcome. And if the outcome is good, everything else will fall into place. I've learned that entrepreneurs only see opportunity, not roadblocks. And I've learned sometimes that people use these roadblocks as excuses. I've learned that sometimes being successful does not make you popular. I've learned that you have to refuel your own pump because no one else will do it for you. People assume that since you're the leader, you have all the fuel you need. Note again to the lonely comment earlier. I've learned that leadership has more to do with instilling confidence and setting direction than telling exactly what to do. I've learned that everything you do becomes a reflection on your business. You are the brand. I've learned that no matter what, unless it is your company, it is impossible to care about it, for other people to care about it the way you do, kind of like your kids. I've learned it's impossible to satisfy everyone at the same time. I've learned that people assume that since you're an entrepreneur, you can work whenever and wherever you want. The reality is you get to choose which 90 hours of the week to work. I've learned that humans are influenced by the irrational behavior of others, but just because someone said it or read it doesn't mean it's accurate. You can't believe everything you hear or everything you read on the internet. I've learned that the more you do, the more is expected of you. And I've learned that a good attitude, positivity, raw talent, and hard work go much further than an impressive resume. I've learned that an impressive resume only helps an entrepreneur if it's coupled with ferocious tenacity, laser-focused dedication, courage, hard work, a can-do attitude, and really good gut feelings. So that was my blog post, and those were the things that I learned, and it's ironic that as the company gets older, because I did write this a little over a year ago, that nothing's really changed. I still, those are still my experiences to this day. So to wrap it up, are you an entrepreneur? I didn't imagine 6 years ago that I could have done what I've done, and that I'd be doing the things that I'm doing today, and that I've learned the things that I've learned. But I certainly wouldn't have dreamed that I would have created a company this large from a computer in my basement. But if what I said about being an entrepreneur has resonated with you, and you can't stop thinking about this for days and weeks, and something really, hits somewhere in your heart today, then I want to encourage you to jump in, trust yourself, and take the plunge, because you can always go get a real job, right? Anyway, if you find something you're passionate about, and being an entrepreneur is something that you think that you have what it takes, then I totally encourage you to follow your gut, trust yourself, and do it. So, thank you, and I'd love to open up the rest of the time for questions. Anybody have any questions? Yes. Oh, good question. So the question is, how do we compete with Amazon with their low price and good shipping? Okay, so when we put up a steal of the day, it's actually the cheapest price online for that period of time. So we always price check and make sure that long before we do the deal that we are going to be cheaper than Amazon. So that is one, and I guess the question is how we're able to compete. First of all, we're not even. We're not even a flick on their radar screen. So I mean, they're one of the biggest companies in the world. So but we still are able to carve out our own niche, and so the difference really is the media focus, because Amazon, you can buy almost anything in the world from Amazon at any time and get it shipped quick, and it's awesome. But you almost need to already know what you want, right? You usually don't go browse Amazon hoping that they're going to curate something amazing for you. You kind of need to go and search for what you already want, and that's where we really come in these niche focuses, because even with scrapbooksteals.com, we come up with the inspirational projects around the the kit or the tools that we're selling that day, and we really have that entertainment focus. And so Amazon isn't necessarily entertaining, but you get what you need and you get it fast. But we also do ship as fast as Amazon, and that is something we're extremely proud of. And our customer service is phenomenal. Our average response time from when we open the email is 2 minutes, and we reply very personally, and in a very personal fashion that hopefully connects people. I've actually, to this day, some of my best friends were customers from the very first year, because writing back to them, we became really good friends. So anyway, with the media and niche focus is really how we differentiate from Amazon. Yes. How fast? So the question is, how fast do we see ourselves growing in the future? Well, that's a good question, because what we try to do is get better every day. But for a company like ours that is privately funded without any investors, we don't pay to market our business. So we don't do any Google AdWords. We don't. What we call it is we don't pay the Google tax, or we're not hooked on the Google crack. We've never had to do that, thankfully, and that's one of the reasons why I'm standing here today, because we didn't pay money to advertise the business, which is really ironic because I was in advertising for my career. But I knew that if we had to advertise a business, then that was a problem from the get-go, because I needed to create a business that provided value and meant something to people. And if I did that, I knew it would market itself, and that really ended up working. But as far as how fast we see ourselves growing, we have really, we grow very, very organically because we don't pay to market our business. We had a huge, huge surge of growth in 2009 and 10, primarily because that's when we expanded our warehouse and we were able to offer more products. And the more products we sell, the more people that get them and have a steals.com experience and that tell other people, or they see, a cute hat on a baby and say, "Where'd you get that?" And When people see, when moms get a great deal on something, they're going to tell you where they got the great deal. But if they paid full price for it, they're not going to tell you where they bought it, right? And so that also helps get the word out. So we really, the more products we can sell, the faster the word spreads, if that makes sense. Any more questions? Yes? So the question is, have we thought about adding a medical aspect to our site? What do you mean specifically? Like medical products or like... Yeah, so you mean like as far as selling medical products or like providing content around that? Yeah. We've done a few medical related products in the past, but we really, it's kind of a fine line for an e-commerce site when we don't have that medical expertise, so we've shied away from some of it, but as far as safety kits, we've sold a ton of, bike helmets and baby safety kits and those kinds of things, but nothing really on the medical side yet. Yes? Oh, wow. That is a deep question. So the question is, with every business there's highs and lows, and what was the worst part of getting to the best? Oh, my word. Oh, wow, there's so many different moments I can think of. The worst part about getting to the best, I would probably have to say, doing every job in the business. And what that meant for me was, going to bed at 4:30 a.m., and I still worked at KSL. So I had to get up at 6 to still get to work, right? To get my kids off to school and still get to work by butts and seats at 8 a.m., which is what it was. So that for me was one of the moments where it was so overwhelming. Again, it was 4:35 a.m. I wasn't done shipping. I wasn't done with the customer service. I still had to buy something for that Saturday as a steal. I mean, we're way in advance now, trust me. A good 6 weeks, which is very nice. But I remember that moment, sitting at my computer, just going, how on earth am I going to leave my stable job that pays very well when I can't pay myself from this business yet? But it was the reality of, I have to do this. I have to believe in myself. And that was a really, really, really tough moment because I was scared to death because I was the breadwinner. But if I could give myself advice now looking back, I would have, the second I had the idea for the company, I would have rolled with it. And of course that's easy to say because it became successful, right? But that was one of the hardest moments that turned into the best, because once I was able to focus 100% on the business and have no other distraction beyond normal family life, it really went crazy. It completely took off. When I finally, trusted myself to that this was going to work. I knew it was going to work, but it was just a matter of reality of when can I pay myself? I have a mortgage, right? So I would say that moment of when it was just complete overwhelm, and I knew I had to make a tough decision, and it might not go well, but I had to just believe in myself and do it. And at the end of the day, I told myself, I can always go get another really great job, So that's another piece of advice I would say is if you try something, don't be afraid, because you can go get a job. Any more questions? Yes. Yeah, so the question is, do we buy our products from somebody else, right? And then how do we get them shipped to us? Do they? Yes. Okay, so what we do is we actually partner directly with the brand itself. So for example, a high quality backpack or purse, that brand, the company that actually made that product, we partner directly with them. And on the promotion of their products on our site for that 12 hours, because we have a new steal every day at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. on all 4 websites. And so we partner directly with that brand, and we do, we work with a big trucking company, and we get everything shipped to our warehouse. We make very, very sure that we don't feature it unless we have it in our possession, because we want to double check it for quantity and quality, Because I'll tell you what, if a woman gets something that you said was hot pink and it's actually fuchsia, which is kind of the same thing, but there's a big difference, that's a really big deal in e-commerce, right? And that really lowers the trust factor immediately. So like I said, a lot of e-commerce is a middleman. They actually never really even see or feel or touch the products. But for us, if we weren't going to market the business, we had to make sure that the customer experience was intact and that it was exactly the way we wanted it. Because we wanted to treat people the way we wanted to be treated. And so part of that is, in e-commerce, is having the inventory and verifying it. So I think that's out of time. We're out of time. Thanks, everybody.
It was a tremendous presentation. We thank you so much, Jana, for being here and sharing with us what it takes to be an entrepreneur. A wonderful way to kick off our entrepreneurship seminar series this fall. Thank you again. Log into Canvas tomorrow about noon, and your assignments will be available.